Hello everyone, welcome to the session. I'm audible, right? Can somebody confirm this?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so basically in the last session, we have seen some initial aspects of security, right? In this session, we will not continue with the usual flow, and whatever I wanted to cover in this week's live session is already done in the previous session, right? So in this session, what we'll do is we'll have a quick revision of quiz 2 because I think tomorrow you have an exam, right? So we'll very quickly go through the mock, all right? Because I think there is a mock released on that, so most of you may have gone through it and may have solved it, right? So we will, in the first hour of this session, what we are going to do is we will very quickly go through the mock, see if there are any doubts, anything that you did not understand, anything we can discuss on. All right, and then in the later half, what we'll do is take your own queries, right? So let's say if you have any queries from previous year's question papers or any particular concept that is not clear up to week 8, right? Then we'll try to discuss that. Okay, so I hope this is clear. With that, what I'll do is I'll share my screen and then we will go ahead. Okay. Okay. I hope my screen is visible. Let's go to. All right. So this is the second mock examination that might have been released, right? So this must be available to you, and I hope most of you have gone through it, all right, to understand what kind of questions are asked in weeks 5 to 8. So generally the syllabus is weeks 1 to 8, but we'll be focusing on focus will be on weeks 5 to 8, but the syllabus is 1 to 8, right? So you can expect one question, two questions from previous weeks also. All right. Okay, so with that, we will start off, and this is going to be the mock. All right, so we'll go with the question one by one. But let's say if there is the questions are clear, and if there is any particular question that you want me to explain, you can just raise your hand and let me know. All right. All right. So let us go with the first question. Which of the following is a true regarding DOM? Okay. So DOM is basically now that we are in week 8, we should understand what DOM is, right? So DOM is basically just give me a minute. Yeah. All right. So DOM is basically first we should know that it stands for document object model, right? So the first option says that it is document object module, which is not correct. It stands for document object model. Okay, model. So what is this basically? It is a tree structure structure which is created for an HTML. So let's say for every HTML document that you see on the page, there is a tree like structure that notes all the nodes of the HTML. Right now, what are these nodes going to be? Every element that you have created in the HTML is going to be a node. All right, so we see that there is an HTML tag. Within HTML tag there is head tag, then there is body tag. Within body tag there are multiple elements like a div tag, let's say an h1 tag. So what do we see here? There is an hierarchy of elements that together constitutes an HTML file, right? So this hierarchy of elements of the HTML when represent in the form of tree is what is called as DOM. All right. Now browsers internally understand what DOMs are. We don't really need to know we don't really need to study a lot about DOM. Browsers use DOM to manipulate the HTML and change the elements on the go, right? So later on you will see a concept called as DOM manipulation, right? So what we are trying to do, we are trying to change the DOM with the help of some programmatic behavior of the code. All right, so we try to add some programmatic nature into the HTML to make sure that it changes, right? Now we want some element to change on the HTML. How does browser sees it? It sees it in the form of DOM. all right, the document object model, and then it targets the node that needs to be changed, altered, and things like that. All right, so every HTML file that we see, every page that is rendered on the browser, inherently also has a DOM, which is understood by the browser, and it helps browser to render it and make changes into it. Okay, so that is the whole understanding of DOM. Let us go through the options, right? So what is DOM stands for? It stands for Document Object Model, okay, which makes option one incorrect. DOM is an API that is used to send requests and receive request responses from the server. No, right? It is only a structure or a model of an HTML file. Okay, it has nothing to do with the request response cycle. Okay. DOM is a tree-like structure or tree-like model of a web document, right? So this is something we have discussed. An object on the DOM can be manipulated without manually changing them in the document, right? So we generally, so far what we have done is in the HTML, we have gone into the HTML, changed the elements manually, and then see, okay, how they get rendered on the browser. All right. Is there a way to change them inherently? Can we do something? Can we write some code to change them inherently? Yes, right? So that is what is called as DOM manipulation. And hence it states that objects of the DOM can be manipulated without manually changing the document, right? So the correct option for this question is option C and option D. All right, this is the first question. Which of the following is true? So after every 2 or 3 questions, I'll just wait and ask you for the doubts, right? Which of the following is true about asynchronous updates? All right. Now, asynchronous updates, you need to understand, you may have seen very often in your portal itself, right? So what happens, let's say you go to the portal, and let's say if I go to, let's say if I click on this orientation of the course. So what is happening here? What was happening before the actual content came off? There is some pre-initial thing that was getting loaded, right? So these are called as loaders. Okay. So what was happening here? The entire page structure got loaded initially, and the actual content, because it was coming from the backend, took some time, right? So this is what is called as asynchronous update. Your entire page is not loading completely. Some part of it is loading, some part of it still stays there, right? So let's say if I again click on the second option, what happens? The entire pane or the entire list of weeks and the contents that is there still remains on the page. What happens is only this part changes, right? So let's say if I do that, you see that? So this loading of the page takes time because it is coming from the backend. It takes some time from the response to come from the backend and get loaded on the page, right? So as for a better user experience, you would not want the entire page to go on just keep on getting loaded. All right, you just want only that page of the entire HTML page to get loaded, which you have which is changed, right? So what is happening here? The content of the page is updating asynchronously. Okay, some getting changed, some getting updated, some staying as they were. All right, so that is what is called as asynchronous updates of the application. Let us go back to the mock quiz again. All right, so again, asynchronous updates, the content of quiz is coming from the backend. All right, in this case this was C and D. All right, so what is it what is about true about asynchronous update? Let us see. So it is first necessary to load the main page, then load the additional data in the background, right? The entire page got loaded first, all right, and then it was this content which was coming on this particular part of the screen will get loaded as and when there is a request made, right? So the entire page does not get loaded. All right, therefore first option is correct. All right, if the first option is correct, obviously second option will not be correct, because what it says, on the contrary, it says every request load the entire web page. That is what we do not want, right? With asynchronous updates, we do not want the entire page to load with every request. All right, therefore option 2 is not correct. User experience is improved due to quick responses. This is correct. Why is that? Because, for example, for example, again, let us see this mock one. So this loading kind of gives you an intuition, or it kind of gives you an understanding that, okay, something is getting loaded and will come, right? So this kind of improves your user experience. Okay, simply if nothing was coming up, only the loading was coming up, it would not be very clear, right? But with this loaders and everything, you kind of get an understanding that, okay, I have clicked, the response the server has responded, something will be loading up very soon, right? So that kind of tells you without telling anything, right? It kind of gives you information without explicitly telling that, okay, something is loading. All right, so that kind of improves the user experience. All right, yeah. Therefore, yeah. So the first option was correct, and the third option is correct, right? As a result of asynchronous updates, server load has increased. This is not correct. Why is that? Because whatever we are doing to improve the user experience at this point is um, uh, putting down some load on the client side. Okay, because there is programmatic behavior coming on the client side, which is loading the client side. The server stays as it is. All right. Yes, some load is shared from the server from backend to the front end, right? So in short, you can say the server load either remains the same or gets decreased, but not increased. All right. Therefore, this statement is not correct. Okay. So in this question, first and third statement is correct. Yeah. Somebody raised hand. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So can we say if there is the option that client load is increased, then should we take that or not?
Yes. Yes. Definitely. Client loads increase.
Client load increase. Okay,
Hmm.
thank you.
Yeah, because yeah. So I mean, see what I said. What is happening here? We are adding a programmatic nature. The static pages which we have worked so far are not static anymore, right? They are taking some time to load. Even the since there are scripts involved, even the browser takes some time to load them, right? With asynchronous updates happening every now and then, the browser have to re-render the image or the sorry, not the image, re-render the HTML or parts or nodes of HTML to some extent, right? So that is adding a load to the client side on the browser, right? So obviously the client load will always increase. Okay, now let us try to see some questions on database. Such questions generally don't come now. So obviously we will try to remove this question from the mock from next time. This question is, but this kind of helps you in, figuring out how to implement search functionality in many projects, right? In some of the projects where search functionality is asked as a core requirement, this kind of helps, right? So what is happening here? There's an SQL query that prints details of worker whose first name contains a, right? So you need to note contains a, right? So it also means that it can start with a, it can end with a, and a can be somewhere in between also, right? So this is where things like these things like come into picture. All right. So in our SQL, what these queries, what they do is they specifically did not pick, does not do not pick a particular name or entity from the table. They does not specifically do that. They look for all the entities that match a particular pattern. All right. So here, if you see the first one, what does it say? It says that okay, there this percentage sign states that there can be anything, and then anything can end with a. All right. So this percentage a refers to, or what does it tries to say, that I want a record within which there is a value that can have anything at the beginning, but it ends with a. All right. So this query tells you that it will retrieve the first name which end with a. All right. First names which end with a. Okay. That is not what we have asked, but this is what it is, what it means, right? The second case, very similar to that, it says a and then percentage sign. What does that mean? Intuitively, that means that every first name that starts with a. All right. Now, if I put both the percentage sign at the start and as well as the at the end, then it would mean that okay, there can be something that starts with a, ends with a, and a can be there in between also, right? So the correct option for this is option C. Okay, now let us see what is this fourth option. The fourth option says that the underscore at the bottom says that it can be anything but only one. All right, and um, specifically the second letter is a. All right, and then followed by anything. All right, so there can be, for example, here, right, if you see Ramesh, the first letter is R, the second letter is a, and then it followed by any part of string, right? So this underscore a says that there is one spot which can take anything, then there will be a, and then there can be any number of spots that take anything. All right. So the difference between percentage and underscore is clear, right? Percentage says any number of spots with any number of string or any character in the string. The underscore says that number of underscores will give you how many spots are to be filled, right? So here underscore, there is one underscore. This means the first letter can be anything. Then there has to be an a. Then followed by any number of strings with any number of characters. Okay, with any character. Therefore, the difference between I would say the difference between second and fourth is this, right? So second one starts with a. The last one says the second letter is going to be a. All right, but again, this will always no, so this will contain a, this will contain a, but only at the second letter, right? What if there is a entity that contains a at in the string but not in the second letter? For example, here Abhinav, right? So it contains a at the last second but not at the second. So this string or this query will ignore this, which is not what we want. We want any first name that includes a. Simply it has to have a. Does not matter where it is. At the start, somewhere in between, second, third, last second, last, anything. All right. So this option number 3 takes care of it. Okay. So are we clear with first 3 questions? Any doubt till this point?
No, sir.
Okay.
Clear.
All right. Let's move to the next question. Okay, so this is a very simple question, but it kind of gives you a lot of information about how endpoints are created in Flask and how values are provided in dynamic endpoints. How do we provide these values and everything, right? It kind of also gives you the functioning of URL for, right? How does URL for method works along with Flask? All right. So you can see you can see so many similar questions in quizzes that revolves around this concept. Okay, how dynamic endpoints are given and how URL for is used. Okay, so many questions you can see. Okay, let us try to understand the question. So there is a Flask application which has app.route with /dashboard. So there is an endpoint created /dashboard. Okay, this is a static endpoint. Very similar to that, there is another static endpoint which is /login. Right. So this login page again, when you talk about login, there has to be a two-step process to it, right? One which sends the login form to us, and second which takes the information from the form back to the server, right? So there is a get and the post method involved. So whenever you see about login, as far as mad1 is concerned, you will see both the methods involved, right? Get and post. Okay, so what happens here, it does something when the method is get, and it does something when the method is post. Okay, what it does we'll see, but it does something. All right, that is the login endpoint. And the second endpoint that is shown here is a dynamic endpoint. That is, some part of it is static and some part of it depends on what is put by the client. All right. So it is dynamic, meaning it takes the endpoint can change based on what the client has put or the user has put, right? So this basically takes username as variable. So it can be anything like /user /mad1 /user /appdev /user /user1, anything, right? You can just put anything here. And with that, what we do is this can be used to pass on information into the route. All right. So whatever I put here can be taken as an argument to the view function that we are, assigning to this endpoint. All right. So let's say if I put /user /username, this username can be put inside the function and can be used anywhere in the function. All right, and that is what is happening here. So I put the username as a dynamic endpoint, and then within that, this username has to be passed as an argument to the function. All right, the parameter that the function takes. All right, and internally it will be done, right? So whenever a user hits this URL with, let's say, /user /user1, the user1 will go as a value and will be used inside the function. Okay, so this is how dynamic endpoints work. Now let us come to this method URL for. All right, so URL for has two arguments basically. First argument is the method name that you want to redirect to. Okay, the method name that you want to go to, and second thing, if the endpoint with which this method is attached to takes some variable, that has to be provided by comma separated values. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Okay, so when I say, let's say, URL for user, it will look for user method name. Okay, please note this is the method name, not the endpoints. So it will look for method name, not this, it will look for method names. All right, so then what it will do is it will look for method name, that is username, and since this user, and since this method takes username as parameter, it will require this, right? So we are putting username equals to your name. All right, so what are we trying to return from this method? URL for this. Okay, so what is going to be URL for this? /user /your name, because we have also provided the value. Okay, so the return, what is being written from this particular piece of code? Whenever there is a post method in the login page, it will enter into this condition, and then it will return URL for. Okay, so it simply returns what is going to be the URL or the final endpoint with which this method is linked with this parameter. All right, so it is going to be /user /your name. All right, And with that, let's say if I say URL for dashboard, so what it will do, it will look for dashboard method everywhere. All right, so dashboard, and what is the endpoint attached to dashboard? Slash dashboard. So it should return slash dashboard. Okay, so this is what is happening in the code. Let us see what they are asking specifically. Right, so if the above Flask application is running on 5000, so this is a generic statement that is used for every Flask application to make sure that Flask application is running, to let you know that Flask application is running on this and this endpoint. Okay, base URL. Which of the following is correct output if the user visits the URL slash http this slash login using a browser? All right. Now it is very important to note that this using a browser is mentioned here. Right. So whenever I go to this endpoint using a browser, okay, this means I will be by default going to the get method. All right. By default, I'll be going to the get method. All right. If the browser is not mentioned, you can use third-party agents to make a request, or you can in fact use curl to make a request to CLI and then specify with what method you want to go. All right. Here, since we are not specifying what method explicitly we want to go, we are mentioning using a browser. So whenever there is using a browser mentioned in the question, you should understand that the method that we are talking about is get method. Okay, so let's say if I go to slash login with get method, what happens? I obviously bypass this if condition and I return URL for dashboard. What is going to be the URL for dashboard? And we also need to see what it is returning. Is it returning? Is it triggering this endpoint, or it is simply returning the endpoint? All right. So let's say when I write URL for dashboard, it simply returns the endpoint. What is the endpoint for dashboard?
Slash dashboard.
Okay, so therefore the answer for this question is slash dashboard. Okay, now let us see what when can you get other options. All right, with what will you, or when can you get other options? So let's say if I want, this is the dashboard. Okay, I simply do not want the code to return slash dashboard. I want it to return something like this. Where is it? Dashboard. Yeah, this is dashboard. This means I don't only want to navigate to this endpoint, I want to trigger it. Right, this means here when you write a return URL for, before writing this, you should write a redirect. All right, so what you are saying to the logic, that whenever there is a get method with slash login, you should redirect to a URL for dashboard. All right, so when you redirect to URL for dashboard, that is when you redirect to slash dashboard, you are actually triggering this endpoint, and this is when you will get, this is the dashboard. Okay, so there is a piece missing here, redirect, which this will give you option 1. Okay, so you have to be very careful what it is returning. All right, there are various questions asked on switching between these concepts, and such options are given just to confuse you. Okay, confuse you meaning obviously they're testing you. Okay, so that is one thing. Now let us see 404 method not found. How do we get this? Put anything, right? So if you put anything apart from, let's say, slash dashboard or slash user or slash login, if you put anything else than this, you'll get 404 not found. Because the whole idea of not found is the URL or the resource that you're trying to find is not found. Okay, what do you mean by resource? The endpoint. All right, and finally we'll go to this slash user slash your name. So what is going to happen? This will not be possible using a browser. Okay, so what you should do is you should then make a request to this particular, you need to make a request to this particular application with some third party agent or using curl. All right, because in curl you have to provide the post, right? So why am I saying that this is not possible with browser? Because slash user slash your name will only come when the request dot method is post, right? When the request dot method is post, you need to know how to trigger post method using a browser, right? It is not possible by simply putting any endpoint in the browser. And we do not have a form, right? You see, there is a request dot post method, but we do not have a form that triggers the post method, right? This means with the help of this code, at least you cannot trigger a post method. Therefore, if you still want to trigger this code, you'll have to go to either the postman, okay, I mean post, any agent that makes HTTP request, that allows you to make HTTP request programmatically or with the help of UI, or the curl, right? So there is a curl method in CLI that allows you to make requests, HTTP requests, right? So it is customizable, and it also allows you to make a to mention with which method you want to hit, right? So there I can explicitly mention post method, and then hence you will get this. Okay. Yeah. Any doubt in this question?
So if we are sending this post method, then return will be the slash user slash your name.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
right? Because we are returning URL for, simply returning URL for, not redirecting to anything. Let's say if you want to again get what exactly it returns, let's say this is your name profile, right? If I want this is your name profile, then I have to mention a redirect here. Okay, very similar to how we put redirect here to get the second option, sorry, first option. All right, actually, I mean, so the finally, what is the answer of this question? Option 2. All right, returning slash dashboard. Okay, now let us come to question number 5. This is a very straightforward question. I hope this is clear to everyone, but let's see. Okay, which of the following statements are true in case we are running the Flask application on this endpoint in our browser, right? So again, in our browser meaning by default get method. Okay, so what is this application trying to do? So there is a Flask application getting created. We have created a base URL. All right, we have mapped an endpoint called, we have mapped a view function called home to an endpoint called slash, right, which is the base URL, which returns index.html. All right, and simply the app is running on this particular host in here. Okay, all right. Now what is the index.html? Index.html is basically a form. Okay, so there is a form here. So there is a form which says first name, which takes the first name as an input, right? Which takes the second, not the second name, sorry, last name as an input, and then finally it has a submit button. All right, and what happens when you get this form? You can put the first name, you can put the last name, and when you click, it will go to the base URL with the post method, right? Okay, so let us see what is true in this case. First option is it will throw a method not allowed error when we try to submit the form. Okay, this is the first option. It will submit the input data successfully. After running the app.py, it will throw page not found error. None of the above. All right. Let us see. Okay, so what is happening here? Whenever I click on submit, what is going to happen? It will go to the base URL, that is / with the post method. Okay, for this post method to be handled, we should mention that my endpoint takes post method. Are we mentioning it here? No, right? If you're not mentioning any methods, the default method and the only method that it can handle is the get. All right. So if I wanted to handle both get method or post method specifically, I need to explicitly mention the methods attribute here. If it is not mentioned, this means it is only capable of handling get method, right? So if it is capable of handling only get method, what will happen when I submit the form? It will definitely give me method not allowed error. Okay, so you can try this question. It will come to you, right? So you will try to submit the form. What happens? It goes to the endpoint and says, I want to execute the code that comes under the post method. There is no code under post method, and obviously before it could get into the function, it will first check whether the method is allowed or not. If the method is not allowed, it will directly throw the error method not allowed. Okay, therefore first option is correct. Okay, now if you get the first option correct, by default all the other options are incorrect if it is MCQ, right? But let us see why others are not correct. Okay, so it will submit the input data successfully. Definitely not, because if first option is correct, second option cannot be correct, right? It will throw method not allowed error, hence it will never be able to get into the function, hence it will never be able to proceed. Okay, after running the app.py, it will throw page not found error. It will not, because there is an HTML page generated at the base URL itself, right? So whenever you run the app.py file and you go to the base URL, right, it will give you page, it will directly render this form. Okay, and rendering of form is fine because this rendering is happening with get method, which is by default happening in the endpoint, right? So this rendering of form is fine. Okay, but the and page not found, it will not give, because yes, whenever you go to base URL, there is a page defined. So if the page is defined, why will it give page not found error, right? And obviously none of above will not be correct, because we know that there is this one correct option here. Okay, so that is there about this question. Okay, now let us come to this is a very straightforward question on a dynamic endpoint, right? What is happening here? There is a Flask app, and we have created an inbuilt database here, right? Inbuilt small database here. Database is given in the form of dictionary, right? So there is a key and value, right? So there is one and there is value, government, official, businessman, and so on. Okay, what is the endpoint we have defined? /customer /int customer ID. All right, and that customer ID will be dynamically provided within the function. Okay, what does it do with the customer ID? What it does is it takes the customer ID, and then from the customer info dictionary, it gets to the key of that customer ID and gives the value. So this DESCR, which is a short for description, refers to the value that the dictionary holds for a particular ID, right? So let's say if I write 1 here, it will store government official, 2 businessmen, 3 entrepreneur, and 4 freelancer, right? So let's say let's say the ID is 1, it will store the DESCR would store business of government official and so on. All right, and then finally it will simply return an HTML which says customer information. The entered customer is simply the value. Okay, so with that, what will happen here? So when you run this application, you go to the browser and write customer 3. So that 3 will get into the function here. Okay, and then with the help of that 3 key, we will retrieve its value, which is going to be entrepreneur, right? So then what does it say? Customer information, the entered customer is entrepreneur. Okay, straightforward question. Okay, any doubt in the last 2 questions we have discussed? Yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Sir, what does this plus sign denote?
It is simply addition of string. No? If you see here, this is all addition of string. You're writing a Python file, right? So you, yeah. So basically, you will write. Yeah. So you're returning a Python string, right? So when you're returning a Python string, the first string is still here. All right. You can see the 3 codes, right? Let me just zoom this.
Yes, sir, I got it.
Yeah, so there are 3 codes, meaning there is a complete multi-line string till this point. Then you want to add the value which is coming from the code here, and then finally end it with the p tag. All right, so this is just a string management we are doing. Not a very good way, but it's fine. For the question, it's fine.
Okay,
Okay.
sir.
All right. All right. Let's go to the 7th question. Okay. Any doubt in question number 5 and 6? Okay. You will see so many questions around these concepts. Okay, consider the following application. What is happening in question number 7? Let us see. All right. So there is a there is a Flask application and there are endpoints defined. Right. There is app.route, app.route about page, app.route project page, app.route about page, project page. Let me zoom this a bit. Okay. Now I want you to notice whenever I've written about page, I have not given a trailing or I would say a leading slash. All right. Whenever I've defined this project page, I've given a leading slash. This is what is called as trailing slash. This is the leading slash. Here we have a trailing slash. We do not have a leading. We
No,
have a
no, no.
leading slash.
Leading, trailing is at the end and leading is in the start.
Sorry.
Trailing is at the end and leading is at the start.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I don't think so. Okay, let us check that back. But okay, at this point, let us see that there is a slash. Okay, let's not go into terminologies. There is a
No.
slash before we have defined the endpoint, and there is a slash at the end. Right? Same thing. So we have not done it here, but we have done it here. Right? And again, we now have about page and project page, which has a slash here, which has a slash in between. But at the end, now there are 2 slashes. Okay, at the end there are 2 slashes. So you understand the 3 cases here. There is no forward slash at the end of the endpoint. There is a forward slash at the end of the endpoint, and there are multiple forward slashes at the end of the endpoint. Okay, let us see how Flask deals with this. Okay, how does the application interprets this definition? Okay, now see, whenever you are writing a view function, you are defining the view function, right? This is the definition of the view function. You are telling the application, okay, this is how my application, this is how my endpoint will look like. This is how my endpoint will work, right? But then when you are going into the URL, you are using the application. All right. So whenever the application is running and you're going to the URL, you are using the application. So remember this term, defining the endpoint, using the endpoint. Okay, so whenever you are writing the endpoint in the app.py, you are actually defining it, how it should work. Okay, you are defining it. All right, and whenever you are using it, it is simply using it. You are not bothered about how it is defined. You are simply using it. Right now, based on this, we will try to answer the questions. Okay. Okay. Now, this is, I hope the scenario is understood. Now, let me give you some facts. Okay, some important concepts of this question. See, whenever you define a forward slash at the ending. See, please note the words that I'm using, right? Whenever you define end forward slash at the end of the endpoints, you can use it with or without the forward slash. Okay. Whenever you're defining it, you can use it with or without. If you're not defining it, you cannot use it with the forward slash. For example, if the about page has a forward slash here, okay, for example here project page, there is a forward slash. This means In the definition of endpoint, I've given forward slash at the end of the endpoint, right? So while using, it does not matter whether I put or do not put while using the endpoint. Okay. But if I have not defined a forward slash here, okay, at the end of the endpoint, I cannot put forward slash while using it. It will not give me the answer. All right. This is the concept of these two. What is the final thing that we are looking at here? Multiple forward slashes. So if there are multiple forward slashes put anywhere into the endpoint, they will all be clubbed into one forward slash first and then will be used. Okay. So they'll be first all be clubbed into a single forward slash and then will be used. Okay. These are the two things or three things I would say we have seen. All right. Let us see and try to answer the questions. Okay. So for the URL, HTTP this, not worry about what is there in the base URL. We should only worry about at this point at the endpoints. All right. Slash about page slash. Okay. When I say slash about page slash, this will only work if I have defined it. Have I defined it? I have not. All right. So if I have not defined a forward slash at the ending, if I'm using it, the browser will give me not found error because the endpoint definition of endpoint is not the way it has been used. All right. So therefore option A is not correct. Okay. The browser will render 404 not found. Okay. Let us see the second thing. Slash project page slash. All right. Slash project page slash, the browser will render the same URL for this. Okay, let us come to this is a what do you say, a conclusion that we can draw, right? So what is the conclusion? Before we get to the conclusion, let us see. Let's say if I say whenever I use this slash project page slash, so here while using I'm putting a forward slash. While using, if I'm putting a forward slash, I need to see whether it is defined. If it is defined, yes, this will return the project page. Okay. All right, let us come to the second endpoint here. Slash project page without a slash. See, the forward slash is defined, but I am not using it. If it is defined, it is fine if I do not use it. This means for this endpoint also, it will give me the project page. All right. Therefore, when I say the option, when I read the option again for the URL this with the forward slash, the browser will render same as that of URL without the forward slash. Right. So this option is also right. Why is that? Because as I said, while defining, if you put a forward slash, it does not matter whether you use it while using it or not. Sorry, you put it while using it or not. In either case, you'll get the right output, same output. Okay, same rendered page. But if you have not defined it and if you are using it, you will get a 404. All right. Therefore, this option was incorrect, right? For this, we will get 404. For this, we will get the correct answer. This is the correct answer. All right. For the next, for the URL this about page project page, the browser will show page not found error. Okay. What about this? Any idea on this? With the understanding we had so far?
No.
We will get page not found error or we'll get the correct output?
We'll get the correct.
Render.
Yeah, it will render, right? Why is that? Because when I said when we are defining it, we are defining it with multiple forward slashes. The second concept says when there are multiple forward slashes, club them into one. Okay, so we now have only one forward slash. So the definition is done with the forward slash at the end. This means if the definition is done with the one forward slash at the end, you can put in you can or cannot put and still get the option, right? So it will not put page not found error or it will not render page not found error. It will give me the this is about the project page. It will give me that answer. All right. So option 3 is incorrect again. All right. Now for the URL, this. Yeah. So this is correct because
Yes.
now we are clubbing it and using it. Right. So definition is also there. Usage is also there. This is fine. So this will give me about project page. So the option D is also correct. Okay. So 3 things we need to note in this question. If there is a forward slash at the end, the definition, you're defining the endpoint with the forward slash with the end. It does not matter whether you use it in the URL or do not use it in the URL. You will still get the right output. Okay. If the forward slash is not defined at the end of the endpoint while creating the endpoint, if it is not defined, you cannot use forward slash while using it. Right. And if there are multiple forward slashes used, all of them will be clubbed into one and it will be there. All right. So these are the 3 concepts, and therefore we have based on there are options based on this. All right. Is this clear?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but I think if we put 3 forward slash in about page slash project page, then it will throw page not found error.
Oh, why is that?
Yeah, because it will understand up to 2/.
It will understand up to 2/.
Yeah, it will convert up to 2/. If we put 3/, then it will throw an error.
Have you tried
No,
this?
I have tried it. It still combines into 1/. How many slashes you put?
Yeah, but for me, it's not. Okay, let me recheck.
Yeah, just check it. Okay, so we'll go to the next question with this. I hope this is clear. In any case, see, even if, see, what happens is, if there are updates in the Flask, right, the way it is interpreting the endpoints, if there is an update, we definitely cannot do anything about it, right? So now we are in the session and we are officially, can discuss this. Officially, if there is a question related to multiple slashes, right, please combine them into one and answer the question. Okay, so you will be marked accordingly. All right, let's go to the next question. Consider the following Flask app and a templating file. So we have a Flask application here. Okay, I will not explain this Flask application now, right? This is straightforward application. Let us see what is the template. It is just a Jinja template, which what it does is it goes or
Sir,
it
I
takes
have a
X.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, in this previous question, if we have defined 2 forward slashes in app.route, and what if we write in the URL 3 forward slash after project page?
Try that. Try that. See, I mean, for the usage, I mean, what do I mean by it will convert? Meaning, in the concept also it will convert, and in the usage also it will convert. Okay, I mean, in the
Okay.
definition also these 2 forward slashes will be clubbed into one, and in the usage also the 3 forward slashes will be converted into one. So at the end of the day, the pattern matches. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so try it out. Okay, see if it shows any inconsistency. Mark that out, and then if there is any, put it on discourse. We'll see. Okay, but this is what has been happening. Okay. All right. So what is happening here? We go up to 20. All right. So from 0 to 19 will go. All right. And then there is this condition which, if x%3, that is, if you divide x by 3, the remainder is 1. Or if you divide x by 2, if the remainder is 1, you simply print x. Otherwise, you don't do it. Right. And this end if and end for is basically to specify that my if condition ends here and my for loop ends here. All right. So you have to explicitly define or mention where my condition is ending and where my loop is ending in Jinja, because in HTML there is no concept of indentations. Indentations are ignored in HTML. All right, whereas they have a lot of significance in Python. Okay. What will be the rendered output when app.py is run? So you need to figure out which of them are not divisible by 3 as well as 2, and then give it the answer. All right, so we'll not go into details of this. What is the answer for this? 1, 7, 13, 19. So in either case, the remainder is 1. So this looks fine. In this case, 4 and 10 are divisible by 2. So this is not correct. In this, 4 and 10, I think, okay. Okay. So this 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, 19, all these are on option 2 only. Okay. So yeah, so we have 4 and 10 and again 16, which are divisible by 2. So it, disturbs this condition, and it is ANDed, right? So it has to solve, or it has to be true in both the conditions. All right, 4, 10, 16, it is exactly the opposite we are trying to do, and none of these, right? So we got the first option correct, which has all the numbers printed would leave 1 as a remainder when divided by 2 and 3 both. All right. Okay, so option 1 is correct in this case. All right, so this is very specific question to Flask SQL Alchemy, and straight away you can answer, right? So whenever you may have created an object in Flask SQL Alchemy, what did you first do? You created a Python object first, all right, using the class, and then you created the object first. Then you add the object to the session, and then you commit it, right? You cannot commit it before adding to the session, right? So and you need to have an object to add something in the session, right? So the correct sequence for this is, you first create a Python object, then you add the object to the session, and then you commit the session. All right, option number 3. Okay, any issues in last 2 questions?
Sir, first option could also be
First
correct.
option. create a session, add Python object to the okay. Create a session. You don't create a session explicitly. You create an object.
No, we can. I mean that begin and end.
No. Didn't get your point. Can you just repeat?
Like there are no session clauses we use it with session dot begin.
Not really.
Some
We don't.
session
We don't
clauses.
need it. We don't need it. We don't need to explicitly create a session or begin a session. So the moment you create a Python object and you mention db.session.add, the session is automatically created, right? So you don't create a session.
Yeah, that is clear. But I said that first option could also be correct. But okay, no problem.
They have
Okay.
given with the Flask SQL alchemy, so
Class is
only
correct. I mean, yes, I
SQL
am.
alchemy.
No, that's fine. That's
I
fine. That's fine. That's fine.
uh,
Okay. Let's say I have create a session. What we are saying is add a Python object to the session. What about creating an object?
that may
Okay.
be existing
So
already.
here we are assuming that the object is already created, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So that kind of is ambiguous then. Okay. So then option
Yeah.
becomes an ambiguous. This is straightforward. Okay. If you want to correct this, I would say create a session. All right. Create a then create a Python object, add the Python object to the session, commit the session. And internally this might be happening. Okay. But what do you do as a when you write the code? All right. So based on that, again, a question that we generally do not, directly use, but then there are, code-based questions on this. So I don't think there will be that confusion in those questions.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So
All
we
right.
don't consider block transactions in such question.
You don't consider block transactions. Okay. What do you mean by that?
Where manually we have to begin the transaction for specific rollbacks nested.
No.
Okay.
Let's not go into that much details. See, if there was something like that, the option would suggest you, all right, that you have to consider this also, or even it would have been mentioned in the question. Okay. So if it is not mentioned in the question, you don't have to consider those things.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Thank
So if the question is generally, see, when we want you to be very specific on what you should consider and what you're not, the question will include it. All right. It will be mentioned in the question. If it is not mentioned in the question, just follow the straight away things that you do. Okay. Now let's say if this is an MSQ, I would then give both the option A and C correct. But since this is an MCQ, the third option is more appropriate than the first one. Okay, because you have to just mark one.
you. Yes.
Okay, let's go to the next question. There is a table here which gives some data about the employee. All right, and what we are trying to, what is the code writing here? What will be the output of the following Python code if it is executed from the Python console? All right, so it very much is similar. It very much looks like a Python console. So what is happening here? First, we are retrieving some information. Okay, what is this information? Company.query.filters. We are querying the company model. Okay, and then with what condition? Company dot employment emp underscore name dot like a percentage, right? What is this a percentage? It starts with a and can have any number of characters after it, right? This is what we have seen in, I think, the second question. And then all such records which match such description will be retrieved as objects. All right, and then you iterate through these objects, right? So for records in record, you see this is just for deceiving. All right, so this basically we have written a singular word record, but you can see that this when this code is executed, it will be a list of objects. So there are multiple items in this. All right, and while iterating, what we have done for records in record, right? So it kind of confuses at some point, but then you need to forget about English here and then focus on code, right? So records here is a singular in this case, and record is plural, right? So it is iterating through the list of objects. All right, and what we are doing, print records.emp name. So finally, okay, so let's say how do we get the first option? If I simply write records, what is it going to do? Firstly, we need to understand what is it iterating on, right? So it is iterating on list of objects, right? Every element in the list is object. So if you simply print the element, it will be the object, right? So first it will print company 2 and it will print company 4. Why specifically 2 and 4? So you need to understand how these objects look basically. So this object structure is angle bracket, name of the model, space, primary key, and ending angle bracket. Okay. So it is, I think, mentioned somewhere, is it not? Okay, so employee ID by default we are considering as primary key here. All right.
It needed to be defined that way in a string method for printing.
No, if we do not define, yeah, you can define it. You can define it, but if you do not define it, by default, it will take the model name, okay, and then followed by the primary key. Okay.
Primary. Okay.
All right. By default, it will take that. You can define. You, let's say if you want just employee name to be to come as an object name, you can define it. All right. All right. So what is happening here? Since we have not mentioned anything about it, we have to assume that it is the by default configuration. All right. So by default, it is going to be, let's say, company, that is the model name followed by the primary key. So this will come only if I simply write records. Okay. Dot nothing. Okay. No dot notation used. All right. This will come if you have no condition, right? You simply query all the records from the table and then simply print them, right? So this will come when there is no condition. This will come when the condition is correct, right? So it starts with A. The employee name starts with A, Amruta and Akash. All right. And therefore option C is correct. None of the above, obviously we got an option, therefore none of the above is out of question. Okay. So you need to, so whenever you solve such questions, you also need to see whether other options are simply randomly given or there is a way that you can bring these options as output also, right? That will give you more understanding on when what would come, right? And how to filter out options. Okay. So with that, we will proceed to this one simple rare question, because this has this path URL path, right? So this is a converter that we rarely use, and we don't generally see its use in our development, okay, as far as Madwin is concerned. But okay, since it is there as a part of Flask, we thought of introducing it. All right. So what is happening here? There is a small Flask application with only one endpoint, right? What is the endpoint? My path route / path URL path. Okay. So what does it mean? What does this mean is, if you want to, let's say, print the name of path, which has multiple forward slashes, okay, then it will consider those forward slashes also as a path or as a part of its path. Okay, it will not break the endpoint like that, right? I hope you are getting. So for example, if you see this top somewhere we have used, right? Yeah, let us take this example only. Right. So for example, if I make this about page, for example, if I particularly make this about page as a dynamic part, okay, let's say /string, angle bracket about page angle bracket. If I do that, it will only consider this as a variable. The thing that is followed will also be a part of static endpoint only. All right. Only this will be considered as variable. Okay. But when I use path, everything followed by this variable, including the forward slashes, will be a part of the variable only. Okay. Therefore, if you see question number that we are seeing now, question number 11, then for if you see whenever you write my path / okay, give me a minute. So whenever you see that, okay, there is this my path route followed by path, right? So this will involve everything that you have written beyond this, including the forward slashes. All right. So let us see what it returns. Okay. Just see that in act. So there is an endpoint my path route, which takes the URL path, obviously, because when you are using anything dynamic in the endpoint, that has to be passed on as a parameter. If you don't pass it, it will give you error. Okay. Then what we are returning, the path is finally the URL path. Okay, so if you see how have we accessed this endpoint like this, right? So my path route followed by this is my directory, this is my subdirectory, and this is /home page. So there are multiple slashes. So that does not break the variable, or that does not break the endpoint into multiple sections, because everything is considered as one because you have used path here. All right. So finally, your output will be the path is from here, right? Followed by this my path. Everything followed by this. Okay, so this is the difference between using path and you simply using string or int as converters. All right, so whenever you put, let's say, string, only that part till the point you have another forward slash will be considered as variable. Okay, if you just put path, the forward slashes that come later will be ignored and become a part of variable only. Okay, I hope you're getting this. All right. Any doubt in this question?
Sir, can we achieve this by typing backslash forward slash in URL?
Yeah. So you can. I mean, yeah, I think you can do. So for if see for by any means, if you are able to, make the forward slashes escape, then you can do it. All right, but then again a tedious work because you just have to write one variable here defining what you are putting in as an endpoint, and it will take care of it, right? You can
Okay.
do that. You just have to find a way to escape the forward slashes that are there. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, your laptop battery is going down.
Yeah. I've just charged. I just switched on. All right. Okay. Right. So let us go to the next question. All right. There is again a product model created here. Okay. And it has some product IDs, some values, unit prices, and units. Okay. These are the 4 columns. And here we have explicitly mentioned product ID is the primary key. All right. Now, what is happening here? The user wants to retrieve a list which consists only names of the listed products. The correct function that does that is. All right. I hope you are aware of list comprehensions. It's something we
Yes,
learn in
sir.
Python.
Yes, sir.
Right. What are list comprehensions? It is just a fancy way or syntax sugar. What is the term called? Syntactic sugar for
Syntax.
creating a syntactic sugar for creating a for loops. All right. So what we are trying to do here is, let's say if you want to write a for loop, what will you write? For product in product.query.all, print product.product name, right? So that you would write. Okay, what we are doing it, writing everything into a single line and then putting a string to it. Okay, so obviously these, the return of list comprehension in most cases, or I think always, is a list. All right, so what we are trying to list here is products. Okay, product dot product name for product in product dot query dot all. Okay, so this part of the way, this entire string we have written, this part queries all the products. Okay, from the all the products queried, this is the iterator, meaning every element in the list that is queried from this command will be coming here, right? Every element one by one. All right, and what do you want to print from that element? You are going to print the product name, right? So product name for every product in product.query.all. All right, so if you just put every here, it becomes more English, right? And becomes more understandable. But in Python, we simply write product.product name, what we want to be printed or what we want to be a part of element of that array, final array. All right, I want product name to be the final element in the array. Okay, product name. So what exactly, where exactly this product name coming from the product object. Okay, and where is this object coming from, which is every element in the product.query.all list. All right, and then finally you provide a list. Okay, so these products at the end would be a list of all the elements with the and every element of that list would be the product name. All right, and then finally you return it. Okay, finally you return it. Okay, therefore option A is correct. Option A is correct. This directly gives me the response, right? It gives me a list where all the names of the products are given and mentioned. Okay.
Sir,
Now, if you
show the
see,
table.
sorry, table.
Just show the table. Okay, so the capital letters are used. Okay. Okay. Just-
Okay. Okay. All right. Now, if you see the code, that is the definition of view function here and the definition of view function here is exactly the same. All right. What is changing is how you have mentioned the methods. All right. Here we have written get method. Here I have mentioned post method. Okay. Does that change anything? Will I get error if I do this?
Where can you scroll up? It depends on how we are retrieving it from browser or we are mentioning post in our call request.
That's what. Yeah, that's what. That's why there is nothing mentioned here. This means you have to, consider all the possible ways. Okay. So if we wanted only the get method to be correct, the correct function that does that using a browser is, okay, that would be the question. All right. But the browser is not mentioned here. This means you should be able to retrieve the list or you should find all the ways with all the methods, with all the means that you can retrieve, right? So whenever I mention get and post method, it does not affect my output, because I can query this also with the curl and this also with the curl, and both of them will give me the list. All right. So here the browser or method specifically is not mentioned. Okay. That's why you have to consider both the possibilities. Okay. That this makes option A and B correct. All right. Let's see why other options are correct or not. All right. So here, if it says product name for product in product.query.org, this will give me
Name
an issue,
error.
right?
Name
Right?
error.
This will give me an error. Directly, you cannot get the attribute unless you address the object, right? So you see the difference between this and this. Here we are getting. I want the product name from the product object, right? Here it says just get the product name, but the Python does not know from where, right? Therefore, this option becomes incorrect. Everything else is fine. Methods and all, everything is fine. Okay. And what about this? This does not returns name, right? So what we want is names, only names of the listed products, right? It returns all the product with product objects, right? It does not returns the name. So we had to add, or we need to add this one line to retrieve only the names from the objects. Okay. So you are basically converting a list of objects into list of strings. Okay. Because these names are stored in strings. Again, that is not happening here. Okay, so the list of product is going to be a list, fine. It is going to retrieve all the products, fine, but it is not going to mention the name of products. It is going to mention the objects only. Therefore, option C is incorrect. All right. Sorry, option D is incorrect, and option C is incorrect because it does not work fine. It itself throws error. Okay, so the correct answer for this question is only option 1 and 2. Okay, option A and B. Clear now? Okay, so there is a follow-up question on this. A model follow-up question meaning, okay, same thing, okay, differently asked. Now, what is happening here in the inventory? A new product called Gypsum to be added into this product table. All right, and there are other columns that we need to fill. That is the units and unit price. All right, units and unit price. So how many units? Let's say you want to add a new product. What is the product name, how many units you are adding, and what is the unit price? All these three things have to be explicitly provided. Okay, if not provided, it will throw error, because and we are not sure whether it will throw error or not. Okay, why is that? Can somebody tell me?
Because definition of the class is not given, the model
Yes,
class,
we do
whether it
not.
is
Yeah,
nullable or not.
correct. We do not have the schema of the model, whether it is nullable or not. So we do not know whether it actually requires, is there any not null constraint there? Is it fine if I simply put the name? So we are not sure about it, right? So we need to make sure that only, all these three are completely required. Okay. We need to assume that these three things are required. Okay, so let us see first option. What is happening here? App.route, products, method get post. Both are fine. Both are given. If request.method equals to post, new product name Gypsum, unit 75, unit price 60, db.session.add, new product, and directly redirect to the base URL. All right. Will this work? Will this work?
Forget commit.
Yes. Yes. So there is a commit missing. You might create a new object. Okay. You might add it to the session, but unless and until you commit, it won't be added to the database. All right. So commit is absolutely required. So you cannot simply directly, by adding it to the session and forget about committing and then directly redirect. It will not do the trick for you. Right. So option A is incorrect. Let's see option 2. There is / products, method get and post, new product name Gypsum, units, price, session.add, and then finally commit. So this looks fine to me at this point.
Yes.
All right. What are other things? Why are other incorrect? Let's see. Product name Gypsum. This is on the assumption that it won't throw any error if we do not provide these two things. Right. So this is under the assumption that other two fields are nullable, which is not fine, right? We cannot assume. Okay. So this is therefore not correct. Right. And what are the other things? Okay. In this thing, can you tell me what is the issue? Everything
We
looks
are
fine,
using
right? There is
post, but post is not defined in the methods.
exactly. So we need to explicitly either define like this, get post, or simply write method post. If I'm not providing any methods, this means there is by default get method. So if there is by default get method, I cannot use this. or I will not be ever able to trigger this functionality, right? Therefore, option D is incorrect. So according to us, only option B is correct, right? Any issue?
Sir, if option B was not correct, then option C we can choose, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, but then it is under
under
a big
assumption
yeah, it is under the assumption that other fields are not nullable, and
that.
we have explicitly provided that. Okay, so we have to assume, I mean, it is very evident from the way the question is framed that both every field that you want to put is not nullable. Everything has to be put.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next question. Again, very similar to question 2 we saw there, right, on the top. Okay, we are again playing around with a static object, okay, or any inbuilt object that is done with the code. So there is a list of dictionaries. All right, there's a list of dictionaries which has brand, description, and that's all right. Brand and description is there. Okay, there is an endpoint which is basically that looks like an API. Okay, so there is an endpoint which says /API/brands. Okay, and that there is a get method defined. Okay, what it does is it says if the brand is request.args. So you need to understand what the request.args are first. All right, so if brand in request.args, then you get the brand. All right, and what exactly this brand stores, we'll see. Okay, then finally you are defining an empty list. Okay, in empty list, then you are iterating through this brand's variable. Okay, this brand's data that we have created. Okay, then you are iterating through it. If brand equals to this brand, okay, let us see what this condition is. Once this condition is true, it will append the brand, and then in the description it will write the description of that brand. Okay, so many brands used. Let us see what exactly is happening here. Okay, so firstly, when I say to be able to completely understand, let us see how the data is passed on, right? There is a simple HTML which we'll come to later, but you need to note this question. Okay, question here. So what will be the output on browser if the user hits the URL http:// this /API/brand, which was the endpoint defined. What is important to us is this, right? These are called as query parameters, right? Everything that is followed by a question mark becomes a query parameter. All right. So this will be considered as the key, and this will be considered as the value. Okay, key and value. Okay. How do you retrieve this in the backend? By using a request.get. All right, so that is what is happening here. Okay, request.get, request.args. All right, now let's say when you write if brand and request.args, meaning if the so whenever you provide query parameters, they get into the backend in the form of a dictionary. All right, because in Python we are dealing with data in the form of dictionary only. Okay, so what is this dictionary? What will be the structure of this dictionary? The key will be brand followed by the colon, the value of the brand that we have provided here. So inside there will be a dictionary created with the key brand and value noise. All right. Okay. Now this condition becomes makes sense, right? If brand in request.args, does that dictionary have a key called brand? Yes. Right. If the dictionary has key called brand, then you get into this. Okay. Then what is this brand actually? It is actually the value request.args brand. Okay, so what is this brand storing in our case? Noise. All right. Now we have created an empty array and we are iterating through the data. All right. What does it say? If brand equals to this brand. Okay, this means when you are iterating through this when you are iterating through this array, every element which is represented by this brand variable is a dictionary. So if I want to get to any of the keys of the dictionary, what will I write? Dictionary name followed by square brackets, and within the square brackets in the quotes we're going to write the key name, right? So you see this brand. All right. So this brand is basically the dictionary, and this square brackets is what you're trying to it says that you're trying to refer to a value. Value of what? This brand key. All right. So what is the value here? It can be Acer in first iteration, Apple in second iteration, Noise in third iteration, and Xiaomi in fourth iteration. All right. This means in the third iteration, this condition becomes true. In either first, second, and last iteration, it does not become true. But in the third iteration, where brand is also Noise, and this brand is always going to be Noise because request.args are not changing, right? So when you are iterating through the data, in the third iteration where the brand is noise, this particular dictionary will be taken off, all right, and used here. All right, so what we are trying to append, output dot append brand. So what gets appended? The entire dictionary gets appended in the brand. All right, and what is getting assigned to this DESCRP value description variable? Brand description. Okay, so this value, it is one of the leading Indian tech brands. Okay, finally you are using all these variables into the HTML. All right, and then if you see, uh, if you go to the question, sorry, options itself, you can directly see that the option C is correct, right? Because when you go through the code, you have the value, okay, noise, you have the value of description. So obviously HTML might be rendering this. This is fine. But if you carefully observe the dictionary, you can directly watch the options and get to the answer, right? So this is something that you should do during by giving your papers, right? Most of the question, not most, some of the questions you will be able to figure out the answers from the option itself, right? Now, if somebody is getting into the code line by line, it might take some time, right? But if you're getting into the options directly like this, it is very much possible that you can still mark a correct option when observing the options itself. All right.
Sir,
Go ahead.
sir, can you please tell again what request.args will return?
Yeah, so request.args will return a dictionary. Okay, it returns a dictionary which stores all the request parameters that you put along with the endpoint. Okay, now what are request parameters? Everything that follows a question mark. Okay, so when I write question mark brand equals to noise, my dictionary will, the request.args will be a dictionary which stores a key called brand and its value is going to be noise. Okay. If I do not provide this question mark, it will not hold anything. Okay, so it will, the request.args will be simply an empty. It will be null.
So it will only contain the brand name, not its description.
No, it cannot. See, it does not have anything to do with the data. This is the data, a separate thing, and this is something that we are providing to endpoint. See, try to understand this. Request.args, arguments from the request. What is your request? This is your request. Okay, this internally the application does not have anything to do with this, right? Later on when I have database, I can simply remove this, but still this will still work. Why? Because it depends on the request, not the way the data is defined or the way the endpoint is defined, right? This will always work with respect to request and not anything else. So it will always monitor, do you have any parameters in the request? Whichever parameters you have in the request, it will store it in the form of keys and values. Okay, it has nothing to do with dictionaries or data.
Okay, sir.
All right. So I think in this question, option 3 is correct. Okay. So I'll go to the 15th. Okay. There is only 15 question. Last question on this in this mock. All right. So there is an addition of database here. Okay. What is happening here? We have created and configured SQL Alchemy, and there is a model. Okay. It is an image. Sorry. So there is a model. Okay. What does this model have? There is this model with the name student. Okay. It has roll number, name, and there is an init function that returns, not really returns, it allows us to create the object without providing the key, what do you say, without providing the attribute name. Okay, attribute name equals to value. Okay, I mean, what do I mean by that? I'll show you here. Okay, so when you use this init method, it directly allows you to create an object without explicitly mentioning the attribute name. Okay, I'll
So
show
you
you.
mean we can use positional arguments, not necessarily need to provide it as a keyword argument.
Keywords. Yeah. Okay, not necessarily provide attribute equals to value, right? So let's say here, if you see student 1, here they have still used roll number equals to 1, name equals to Sam, right? I could have directly written student in bracket 1 comma Sam. All right, it will still work. Okay, so this init method allows you to initialize the object by directly providing the values. Okay. So here, I mean, you can always use the conventional way of doing it, but when you have an init method, you can directly provide values followed by the, I mean, all the values comma separated. Okay, and they will take it, they will be taken as a positional arguments. First will correspond to roll number, second will correspond to the name, like that. Likewise, I mean, it depends here. Okay, how you define this. All right. So what is happening here? First, we create the database. Then we create the first student object, add it to the session, commit it. What happens? This Sam, student with name Sam, gets added to the database. Then we create two students, student 2, roll number 2, name Lee, student 3, roll number 3, name Sandy. All right. Then you add student 2 to the session and then you commit it. And then finally you add student 3 to the session. Okay, but you don't commit it. The only difference between the last student and the other two is first two are committed to the database. They will be in the database, but the last is not. Okay, but the all the three, 1, 2, 3 are there in the session because all of them are added in the session. Okay, student 1, student 2, and student 3, all of them are added in the session. Okay, now this is where it slightly gets tricky. So when you say result equals to student.query.all, it refers to session, does not refer from the database. See, if you have the database, right, so it will first refer to the session, then it will refer to the database. Okay, when we are using like this, when you are creating here into the code itself, okay, it will maintain a session. But in case of application, there won't be any session maintained because whatever query you're doing will be happening in the endpoint, right? Here there is no endpoint. We have simply written pieces of code one by one. So the session is maintained here. Okay, so first when you do a student.query.all, it will first look for the session. If the session is not there, it will look for the database. In most cases, the data in the session and the data in the database remains the same because session is created when you retrieve data from the database. All right, but in this case, what is happening? There is slight difference. Database is there, but the session has 3 entities created. 2 of them are added into the database, right? So when you, all in all, when you try to see what the result is, with the student.query.all, it will retrieve everything that is there in the session. Okay, this particular command will retrieve everything that is there in the session. Okay, and what we are trying to do, go ahead. Anybody speaking?
So how can we avoid this? Is there something for session clear or session expire which just clear up the session and then we can load the values from database?
Yeah, definitely we can do that. But as I said, whenever you when you link this, when you write this in the when you link this with the endpoint, you are not going to play around like this, right?
Actually, I think there was some problem with
Hmm.
my project. Same thing. That there was some inconsistency. So then there was some expire also. I'm not sure what it did, but yeah,
Hmm.
it fixed that.
Yeah, so see, that's what. So something may have happened in the code, but what generally happens is whenever you retrieve, see, every endpoint, what do? You create an entity, you directly add it to the session, all right,
Hmm.
and then you commit it. So these 3 lines, creation of the entity. So if you refer to this, student 1, then addition of student 1 to the session, and then committing. These 3 pieces of code you will see all together in the code. In the endpoints always. Okay,
Hmm.
you generally don't see like this, right? You first create the entity, then you add only first entity, then you commit, and then you add another entity. This won't happen. Okay, this scenario is created to purposely make sure that the session created or the data that is there in the session and the data that is coming from the database are 2 different things. Okay, or getting stored to the database are 2 different things. Generally, when you create endpoints, you wouldn't do this, right? So whatever is created is then added to the session and is then committed. So there is no point of or there is no chance of to inconsistencies in the session and the database information unless and until you create one. Okay, so in general application these things won't happen. Okay, but you need to understand that whenever you add certain things in session and you commit a part of it to the database, the retrieved information will come from the session. Okay,
Oh, thanks.
right? So when you write print x dot name for x and result, again this comprehension, right? X dot name coming from where? For every x in a result, right? So every time you put an every, it becomes more sensible, right? But Python for x, all right? So for every x in result, that is for every element that is coming in x, that is getting stored in the x from the result list, you try to print x dot name. Okay, and print meaning you take that as an element of this outer list. Okay, so finally the list will have all the 3 students name, right? So it will have Sam, Lee, and Sandy. Okay, therefore the final list will have these 3 things. But what are the 2 things that is getting added or getting retrieved from the database? Only the 2 things that got committed. right? So student 1 and student 2 got committed. Student 3 did not, right? So if I just go back to the question is, if you run this application using a terminal, what will be the output, right? So when you use a terminal, you create a session within the terminal. I think in SQL Alchemy sessions, I'm not sure if this was covered. I think it was covered this time, but I'm definitely, if you go through the best live sessions, what we do is, when we do not have an interface, we try to connect with the database using shell, all right, or the terminal. So we, in the terminal, we create a Python shell, and then we interact with the database using these commands, right? Creating the objects, adding it to the session, and all those things. All right. So when you see that, you will see whenever there is a Python shell created, every shell would represent a session. If you end the shell, the session will be closed. Okay. So session stays active as long as the shell is active. Okay. And database remains active as long as you commit into the database. Okay, so you can see those differences there when you're interacting using a terminal. Generally, in an application, you have an UI, right? So you interact with the database in the form of endpoints, and then finally show the data on the UI, right? So the inconsistency is not created in the application. But when you do it with the terminal, there is a chance, all right? And obviously, we are testing, right? In the terminal, we are not making the application. We are testing how we are linking the database. So it is always better to use terminal while seeing whether the data is there or not. Okay, so when you do this, when you try to print this, what happens? The entire session will give you three names, because these three students are added to the session. But when you go to the database, only two records, I mean this tuples would mean two objects or two records get added to the testdb database here, right? So this testdb. Okay, therefore the option or the answer to this question is option B. Okay, not option A. Okay, most some of you would do option A, but it is option B. Okay, are we clear in this?
Yes.
Okay, so these are the things that you might have to go through. Okay, there are some questions that directly do not cover APIs, but at the end of the day, APIs are just a JSON return, right? Okay, and whatever concepts are covered here in the form of endpoints, dynamic endpoints, static endpoints, right? Forward slashes, without forward slashes, then how do you put in values, right? With request.args, all those things. How do you provide value to the endpoint? You either provide using dynamic endpoints like this, right? Something like this, or you provide with request.args, something like this, right? So these are one of the two methods, sorry, these are two of some methods that are used to put in data to the endpoint. Okay, so there can be other methods also, but they are more relevant when it comes to APIs. When it comes to Flask application, with simply endpoints created, you can either provide information through endpoint, dynamic endpoint, or through query parameters. All right, and both of these we have seen here. All right, in week 3 content, somewhere you will see data being provided to Python application using terminal also, right? Terminal also. So that is covered, or that is taken care of by something called as sys.arg, right? This is something you have seen in week 3. So you might want to revise that part also, because the actual syllabus is weeks 1 to 8. So you might not get direct question on week 1 to 4, but concepts from there will definitely be taken to create questions. Okay, are we clear with these 15 questions that we have covered in this mock?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So,
sir.
sir,
Okay.
so will there be questions regarding SQL alchemy, not Flask SQL alchemy, no SQL alchemy or rollbacks, operators, these things? Because in
Not really, not really. If it is covered in live session, you can expect. If it is not, there is no point. All right.
okay,
So
live
either it is covered in the screencast or it is covered in live session. Then you can expect question. If it is not covered, it will not ask.
screencast covers a lot of things.
Hmm.
That's why I asked it. The screencast have that
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
operator
screencast to some
search
extent
function.
has that. But see, the thing is the working and the interpretation of these objects and sessions and how database is getting added, creating objects, all these things are very similar in both, right? SQL Alchemy or specifically Flask SQL Alchemy. So I would suggest you to go through not only the screencast but also the live sessions that we have taken this term, and also best live sessions. Okay, so there we kind of cover every possible aspects that can be used to frame questions.
Mm. And
Hmm.
Sir, there is a doubt I have in week 8 graded assignment first question that says static pages can include, and the correct option that it shows is JavaScript.
Can you refer
Week,
me to that part?
week
Week
8
5?
graded. Week 8 graded.
Week 8, week 8 graded.
I think first question is there.
First
Yeah.
question. Which of the following are which of the following are permitted in a fully static website? Images, JavaScript, database connection request for each page, all of the above.
Well, JavaScript it says, but is it correct? Or if yes, then why JavaScript?
Okay, let me check. Which of the following are permitted in a fully static website? Images definitely are permitted. Okay, database connection request for each page. This is not a. Okay, see, first we need to understand why, what is a static website and what is a dynamic website, right? So, a static website is something that has only information. Okay, so you retrieve the information from the web, entire HTML is dumped as it is. Okay,
Hmm.
that is a static web page.
Yes.
What is a dynamic web page? A dynamic website or a dynamic web page refers to there is a template and the data getting populated on that template wherever there are placeholders,
Yes.
right? So it has nothing to do with JavaScript. Okay, a static website can still have some JavaScript and have, for example, you see this bell icon, right? So this, popping up of this model is JavaScript. Okay,
Hmm.
is this a dynamic content? I can always make this as a, so all the links are coming from the database, that is fine, but can I have a static page loading here,
Yeah, possibly. Yeah,
right?
information like.
So yeah, and when you load the complete page, the script entirely also gets loaded, right? So you are not querying the database, you are not what do you say, mandatorily querying a database when you are using JavaScript, right? So what do you mean by fully static website or a dynamic website? What difference? It's not, we are not talking about how the content is being shown or how the elements are removed or added to the web page. Okay, that part is okay. That is a programmatic behavior of web page. Okay, that is not a dynamic web page. A dynamic web page is where some information is dumped onto the page, some information is coming from the database and getting populated elsewhere, some information are basically fetches from various resources and then being shown to you. So this is a dynamic web page. All right,
Oh,
so a static web page can still have some JavaScript code which allows you to add some animations, maybe some drop downs, maybe all those things, still static, right? Content is already coming from the backend at once. Okay, a dynamic web page can make multiple requests to the backend to actually load its information. That is what we have seen in asynchronous updates, right? So a page being loaded asynchronously is always dynamic. All right, but let's say I have this, assume that this page is static. Okay, so the ability of this page to scroll like this will be loaded with the script, and then script, and that this script will be loaded only once, right?
yes.
So therefore, it is still a static. Okay. So therefore, option images and JavaScript both are correct in this case.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it. So dynamic web page is something which is generated programmatically. I mean, the data is filled programmatically,
Yeah,
or
and
it
that data is subject to change every time you, let's say, reload it, or let's say you come to that page every 2 days or 3 days, right? There is a chance that the data is updated, right?
so if a page, if I just say I write a route and
Hmm.
use Jinja in it, but still I'm not changing anything. I'm just
Hmm.
passing the same data every time.
Yes,
Still it
in
will be.
that case also, you see, in that case also the page becomes dynamic. Why is that?
Hmm.
Because what a static page, see, okay, there is a difference between a render template, right? When you render the template, a static page is directly dumped to you. Okay, the
Hmm.
content already exists in the database. Database meaning on the server. The HTML pages that you're dumping, static HTML pages that you're dumping, are existing in the database, right? Database of the server, data, I mean, some storage part of the server. Okay, but when you return an when you return a string, a dynamic string, what happens? Every time you go to that endpoint, that string is generated, put onto an HTML page, and rendered and sent as a response. Okay, that page does not exist in the server. Okay, it is a part of code. So when you simply return and then followed by an HTML string or a simply string, that is a piece of code that exists in the server. Okay, that is not the date that is not residing in the server as a part of file. Okay, so see it this way: when you render an index.html that says hello world, or you simply return hello world, there's a difference, right? In first case, the HTML file exists in the database, static content. It is statically residing, no change being done. Okay,
Okay.
but when you do this, when you use the second approach by saying return hello world, okay, string, what happens? The server has to create an HTML page, create it as a response, and send it to the HTML page, and then send it as a response, right?
Yeah, sure.
Every time you hit that request, the new page is created and sent to you. So therefore, it is a dynamic content. Yes, it looks same every time. It is same, but does not matter.
But the function render
Hmm.
template or Jinja render, which actually
Hmm.
internet targeted,
Hmm.
see,
Hmm.
both of them also return string. They return type as a string. The route that we give as decorator
Hmm.
takes that string and use that string to create HTML. So if we are
No,
using
no, no.
Flask,
Yeah. So yeah. I understand. But when you want to put some data onto HTML, I'm saying that you are returning, let's say, index.html, which simply has hello world on it.
hmm,
Okay. So it
if
is a static page, right?
yeah, that is static in HTML, but if I just directly start a Python HTTP server and I
Hmm.
directly able to access it, then I should call it static. But if I'm using
Hmm.
Flask, Flask anyway convert the page into a string and then again translate into HTML. So it's like file to string, then I mean read and then write again. So it do
Hmm.
this read and write every time. So whether page have any Jinja or not, it is just HTML. It will do a
Hmm.
string read,
Hmm.
that basic IO, and then again string
Hmm.
write, HTML write to the browser.
Hmm.
So should I
Yeah, I
say
understand. I
any
understand
page?
your point. Yeah, I
Hmm.
understand your point, and it is correct to some extent. But see, the thing is, what you're saying is it is converting. But see, what our question is, that is underlying, that are things happening underlying how Flask operates, right? But
Hmm.
is every website confined to Flask? No, right? There will,
No.
as just the way you mentioned, right? You can just create a Python HTTP server. So in case you are creating Python HTTP server, you may not be able to return a string always, but you can always render index.html.
Yeah, that is fully static.
Hmm.
If
So that's
but
what I'm saying. Whenever there is a content statically written, no edits happening, no content dynamically being put, hard coded content there inside a file into the server, that content is static. Okay, so you take it that way, and it will be fine for most of the questions.
and
So
like just a second, yes. So if they are mentioned with they mentioned Flask Flask website. Should I just mark dynamic because Flask render template I can say return render template plus 0. So there will be a 0 at the last. Doesn't matter what page content is. Flask
Hmm.
can do that. So if they mention Flask, should I just say dynamic?
See, in case of Flask also, yeah, you are referring to a page only, right? It is existing in the server.
Okay.
Okay, so when you are referring, see, so that's what I'm saying. I think there was one question also. I'm not sure if it is there, or I think there is a question. No, I think it is removed or it is there in practice. I'm not sure. But see, what happens is if the page that you're trying to render exists at the server, static content. Okay.
Okay.
If you're simply returning return and then you're writing some HTML there as a return statement in the form of strings, it is dynamic. Okay,
Okay. And any
that is what
changes
you have to.
also
Yeah,
dynamic. Okay.
dynamic. Yeah, that is
Though
what you have to consider.
it's not technically correct because render template function is itself dynamic.
Hmm.
But okay, no problem. Whatever
Yeah,
for. Aditya.
Understood your point. Okay, understood your point. Let me see if we can frame it. I mean, see, we'll have to, get into how exactly Flask is, doing things.
Hmm.
Okay, so but then see, there has to be some difference between a simple render string and then using a render template. Yes, render template is dynamic, but I do you think that it is doing something when there is a static page getting rendered with render template?
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is converting because
Okay.
just as I said, you can do render template plus string of zero.
Hmm.
So that though it will be at the end of HTML tag, so it won't show it you there. But if
Hmm.
you say you store it in output variable
Hmm.
and you write
Okay.
it into a file again, then you will see
Hmm.
that zero there at the end.
Okay,
So
but
the
hmm.
nature of render, actually it calls Jinja render, so that
Hmm.
Jinja render is dynamic.
Hmm. Okay,
Uh,
understood. Hmm.
so okay, no
Okay,
problem.
okay, understood what
That
you're trying to say.
whatever force
Let's see if we
inside.
can, yeah,
Hmm.
let's see if we can see those references. Okay, but as far as questions are concerned, you want, see, I think that was already covered, that type of question. And see, at the end of the day, we want you to understand how applications are created with Flask, right?
Hmm.
Questions will not get into details of how internally Flask works, right? That is the
Hmm.
reason we never get into, we use app.route so often, but we never get into how functioning of app.route happens,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because there is a reason why they are termed as decorators, right? So because your focus should be creating on the endpoint, not on how, things are getting changed or converted at the
Hmm.
server end.
Okay. Yes.
All right, so we'll not get into details of that much.
Hmm.
When it comes to render template, let's say it is static unless and until there is a data being added from the database. All right,
Hmm.
and when it comes to web page, if there is any content getting thrown off onto the HTML from the database or from some outside resource, then Flask has to internally do something and make that page, right? But when
Hmm.
it is just a static content, what can happen, in our case, it can have images, it can have some script that gets loaded at the beginning, and that's all, right? No content coming from anywhere else. Whatever is dumped, that's all. To
Okay.
update the content, you'll have to then again get back to the make the request again and see if it is updated. All right,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
in with respect to this question, if it is a fully static website, there is a obviously images are there, but there is a chance that it can have a script and it
Yeah.
still remains static.
Okay. Okay.
So if
Thanks.
the JavaScript is getting something from the client, like their IP address or their some cookie or cache, it
Hmm.
will still be static.
No, no, no. If JavaScript is fetching data, see, in other case, even in that case, you don't even require JavaScript, right? That is what I'm saying. A fully static page is the site that renders data that is simply dumped there, right? The response come from the backend and it simply dumps. If it is fetching the data, if there was a template and it is fetching the data and putting the data, placing the data wherever there are placeholders, whether it is the backend doing it or the JavaScript doing it, it makes the page dynamic. All right. Now, which of the following are permitted in this case? What we are saying, we are assuming that JavaScript is not fetching data, because in that case, the whole point of this question is defeated, right? JavaScript,
Sir,
is JavaScript only used to fetch data? No, right? It can add some programmatic behavior to the HTML page. That also
hmm.
is there.
So can we say in context of JavaScript, if it
Hmm.
is affecting the content of DOM,
Huh.
then we can say it's not static anymore.
Definitely, yes. Right. So
Okay.
if the JavaScript is able to make some request to the server, fetch some data, and place anywhere on the page, it is no longer a static, right? It becomes then dynamic. But that is very specific when you want to make JavaScript to fetch, or you want JavaScript to retrieve data. In our case, in when it comes to mad one, in our case, what is happening, the data is being retrieved from the I mean, the server is handling the data retrieval and sending, right? So server returns the complete response whether it is coming from database or not. The server takes care of the complete response, right? If that is happening, if the server is sending some response from the database, okay, if we are rendering a page where the data gets updated every now and then we cannot call it static, right? It has to be a dynamic.
Hmm. Sir,
Okay.
there was a question in quiz
Hmm.
one PYQ that
Okay.
if we click this button, then
Hmm.
the one section of the page will be removed. Remove
Okay.
means somehow deleting through JavaScript somehow.
Okay.
So, will that be considered as dynamic, because we're not fetching anything from database, but we're
Hmm.
still affecting the DOM by some programmatic behavior, adding some text or removing some part which already exists.
Okay, that is fine. But when see what happens is whenever you are removing it or whenever you are adding a text, that functionality was itself as a whole retrieved or returned with the response, right?
Yes, sir.
So then, how do you call it that it is connecting to the database or changing the content dynamically?
No database connection, just
Right.
programmatically.
So even if there is a button that removes the content is getting removed from the DOM. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. So there is no database operation happening. There is no fetch operation happening. If you are adding some content with the help of JavaScript, what needs to be added was also returned as a response initially before itself when the request got loaded. It is not when you clicked on button it then fetched the information and then added it, right? If it is happening, then it is dynamic. But if you are simply adding a button that removes a part of text or added a hard coded text, right, that hard coded text will be provided through script only. So if that script is getting loaded at the initial request only, the first request that comes, then you cannot call it dynamic, right? Everything was fetched at once. You're not making request every now and then.
Okay.
All right, but again, see, this is very specific. I mean, this day, I mean, the discussion that we are having here will make more sense when we get into Mat 2, because there we actually use JavaScript to deal with the data, right? Here we are not doing that. Here, the entire logic belongs to the backend, and front end is only responsible for placing that data at appropriate places. But in MAD 1, what happens? The front end and the back end both gets decoupled. So it is then responsibility of the front end also to fetch the data whenever required and then place it wherever required on the DOM. Okay, but the primary function is to fetch the data first, and therefore no page when it comes to MAD 2 is static. All right, all the pages are dynamic. Okay, but
Sir,
since in MAD 1, what we are doing is the major operation, programmatic operation logic is happening at the back end. There is a chance that we always have a static page. There is a chance. It's not always possible.
sir, there was a question in PYQ regarding
Hmm.
CSS pseudo class selector. So pseudo
Hmm.
class selector not covered in
Pseudo class selector. See, there is one or two question that you would see in, let's say, 3-4 terms paper, right? So it is something that we generally do not put now, but
no, no,
one or two cases it
one
may have happened.
in last PYQ. I think last or the second last. I mean
Hmm.
December term.
Yeah, that's
So
what. Hmm.
uh, so
Yeah, that's
pseudo.
what. So pseudo classes in CSS we will not cover as such. There won't be questions because
Okay.
yes, I think there was when that question had come, there were discussions around whether we should give such questions or not, things like that, right? And
Uh,
eventually we decided to not get into details of CSS that much.
mhm. Okay.
Okay, so you won't
And
see those questions as such.
and one last doubt I have is about JSONify and JSON
Hmm.
stuff. What is the difference between
What is the difference between
these two? JSON.dump and JSONify.
JSON.dumps? JSON.dumps basically both are same. Okay, the functionality is both same, but
Okay.
JSONify is a method provided by Flask.
Class.
Okay, whereas JSON is a
Python
generic
code
function
library.
provided by Python.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
so what does JSON.dumps do? Everything it converts a JSON into JSON string.
Okay.
All right, it converts a JSON into JSON string, JSON.dumps. And
Hmm.
what does JSONify do? Method is specifically provided by Flask, and it can be used in two different ways. One is
Hmm.
JSONify can be used to return a Python dictionary or convert a Python dictionary into JSON. Okay,
Hmm.
or it can be used to at the end of the day, see what you're doing JSONify. So at the end result will be JSON, but how you are providing data can differ in JSONify. One is you can provide a Python dictionary. Python dictionary can easily convert into JSON, so you can provide Python dictionary. But the other use of or other way of providing data in JSONify is you can provide as key attribute equals to value that way also. All right. So for
Okay.
example, just write in chat. Okay, it will be visible to you. So let's say when I use JSONify, or let's say when we use JSON dot dumps. Okay, when we
Yeah.
use JSON dot dumps, it is mandatory for me to provide to provide a dictionary or anything that gets converted into JSON.
Okay.
Okay, so I will always have to provide dictionary. Okay, in JSON dot dumps. And what is the end result? It returns something like this.
A string enclosed dictionary. Yeah.
JSON string. All right.
Hmm.
This is what is the use of JSON dumps. Now JSONify, in one case, it is also going to take a Python dictionary, but it returns a dictionary. It does not returns a JSON string.
Okay.
Okay. It returns sorry, not dictionary as such. It returns actual JSON, proper JSON. Okay. It takes a Python dictionary, returns proper JSON. JSON.dumps takes a Python dictionary, returns JSON string.
I think
Okay.
JSON.dumps is used for explicit IO operations.
Yeah, that is also possible
Maybe.
because you can decide how you want to send data, right?
Okay.
JSONify is very specific to Flask because in Flask you can create APIs that are tend to return JSON.
Okay.
All right. Now, other use of JSONify is something like this. You can use JSONify. Sorry, I'm writing on chat, but all
No
right. So
problem.
JSONify, let's say something like this: message
Hmm.
equals to noted. All right. So what I've done here, I've provided an attribute and provided a value to it. Right. It will again convert it into a JSON, something like this.
Okay.
Okay. So in either case, JSONify returns JSON only. The way in providing data or information to JSONify method can differ. All right. End result is always going to be JSON. In JSON.dumps, end result is always going to be JSON string.
JSON is string. Okay.
All right. Now JSON.dumps, this method can be used when you want to provide data using post method. Okay. So whenever the data is going to the server and it is not going through form, if it is not going through form, it is going through request body, then the data has to be provided in the form of JSON string, and that's where you use JSON.dumps.
JSON dot explicit
Okay.
IO.
In now, if you want to see a similar thing in JavaScript, we use something called as this JSON dot stringify. So this method in JavaScript is used to convert a JSON or a dictionary. I mean, see, in case of JavaScript, it is not going to be dictionary. It is going to be a JavaScript object. So it is used to convert an object into a JSON string. What is the output of this?
JSON string.
JSON string. Both of these methods, JSON.stringify in JavaScript and JSON.dumps in Python, is used to send data to the server with request body. Okay. So whenever you are making a request using Python, you will use JSON.dumps. Okay. When you are doing it with JavaScript, you will use JSON.stringify. See, we have not seen these cases so far because we have been sending our data till now through forms.
But I
Okay.
have
So the
seen in PYQ JSON.dumps are direct. I
but
mean,
then there must not be form, right? So if there is not a form and you still want to provide data, you will use JSON.dumps. And what I was saying basically, so in forms, the data goes through payload. So
okay.
internally, the payload takes care of conversion of data into JSON string.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
all these things are there.
Yeah, my doubts are clear. And sorry, Yashvi, for interruption. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody was speaking. Yes, I didn't see the names. If there is any question, please go ahead. If there is any question from the previous year's paper that you want to discuss, that also you can show. Okay, but still, by tomorrow, if you have any doubts, try to put it on discourse. Go through the PYQs, try to put it on discourse, and we as a team as well as TAs are there to help. Okay, even if I am not able to reply, TAs will definitely reply. Okay. Yeah. Any query on PYQs? Any query in general up to week 8?
Um, Post is usually non-idempotent, like it can create multiple entries. But if it's like we are throwing an ID and it has a unique constraint, so if you're throwing an ID multiple times, it will not create it because there is a unique constraint. So then it will
Correct.
be idempotent,
That operation is going to be idempotent. Post method will not be.
will not be.
Right? Yeah. So post method by its nature will not be idempotent because it's see the usage of post. See what happens is in HTTP methods there is a conventional use of HTTP methods, and then there is how you want to use it. Right? I can still send data with get method, right, and retrieve information with post method. Right? Very unethical, but I can do it. But right, but there is a conventional way of doing it. What is the conventional way? Generally you retrieve data with get, you post data or send data to the server with post. All right, so whenever you are sending a data with post, again in that case, whenever you want to add a new data, you use post. Whenever you want to update the data, you use put or patch. All right, these are conventional usage, and the idempotence and safety of these methods are defined on their conventional use. Okay. So whenever somebody asks you whether a method, HTTP method is conventional or safe, you will answer based on how conventionally they are used, not how you can use them. Right? What the scenario you mentioned is how you can use a post method. Right? It is not how conventionally you use it. Are you getting my
Yes.
argument here?
Yeah.
All right. So whenever you are trying to, add that not null constraint to make sure that new entity does not get created with post method, that operation entirely becomes idempotent, but post by its nature will not be idempotent. Right. So the moment you remove that non null constraint, post will do its job. Will it? It will do,
Yeah,
right?
to create
That
multiple.
is what. Yeah, it will do it. Okay. But put in general will not do that. So that's what. So whenever somebody asks you whether this HTTP verb is idempotent or not, safe or not, you will answer based on how they are conventionally used. Okay. But whenever somebody asks you about an operation, then you will have to carefully look at the operation and see whether the operation is safe or not, idempotent or not. Okay. In your case, your operation is idempotent.
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, just one small thing. So
Hmm.
there was a question in which we have a API resource class
Hmm.
and get post and delete methods. The get method have a parameter, sorry, a URL parameter, while
Hmm.
post and delete doesn't have that. So,
Hmm.
and in add resources, we have added few routes, a few
Hmm.
like URLs. Some
Hmm.
of them have that optional parameter, and some of them don't have.
Okay.
So, can I say that everything that is added, like every route that is added to the add resource, is defined for every method in that resource class? Whether it works or not, that is another thing that depends
Hmm.
on definition, but it is connected there.
Yes, you can say that. Right. In fact, that is what is happening in RESTful. So what
Mhm,
happens is it does not see whenever you write a def get something, def post something, you are
mhm,
defining a method. I understand.
mhm,
But in the add resource, are we explicitly mentioning that okay, I'm defining this endpoint for this resource, I'm
mhm.
defining this endpoint for this resource? You simply say this is the resource. Simply
Yes.
add resource. So how do they get matched with each other? They match the pattern. Okay,
Match the pattern
match the
uh,
pattern
of the URL.
URL. So what do I mean by that? If a method, let's say get method, takes an argument within it, it
Hmm.
will be mapped with every endpoint that takes an argument.
Okay, so it
All right?
mapped with only that, not without you
No, no,
like
no, not with
argument.
without, not with without. It will be, they will be mapping each other with the way with the pattern, right? So if you have an endpoint which takes a dynamic variable, it will be mapping to all the methods that take a variable, because obviously, right, the dynamic I mean, you to understand this, you can come back to app.route. Okay, in app.route, if you have a dynamic endpoint, how do you deal with that variable provided in endpoint? You have to provide that as an argument of function, right?
Yes.
If you don't do that, your endpoint will not be understood, right? So the variable will not be taken, and the endpoint will not know how to process it. Similar to that, in RESTful also, what we are doing is we are decoupling the way of writing method and the endpoint, right? Both are written differently, right? So what happens whenever you create an endpoint that takes a variable, it will be mapped with all the methods that take a variable. Okay. Similarly, if you are creating an endpoint that is static, does not take a variable, it will be mapped to all the endpoints. Endpoint meaning all the methods that do not take a variable. You can try that.
Yeah. There was a question, and I had this confusion. Like,
Hmm. Do you have reference to the question? You can share the screen and maybe show.
actually, I lost the question. It was some
Okay.
PYQ, but I don't store that. But
Hmm.
I remember that. So the
Hmm.
question was, which of the following routes? I
Hmm.
mean, they mentioned a route and say whether it is mapped to get or not
Hmm.
get and poster. So I thought, okay, it is mapped to everything, but it won't work. Give 404 error, but it is mapped. That was my thinking, but it is wrong
No.
according to my
It's
system.
like a wrong meaning. It still is understood, right? So let's say you're saying I'm mapping an endpoint.
Hmm.
Okay, and I'm trying to get to the endpoint that does not exist. You tend to get a 404, right?
Hmm.
That is first thing. Secondly, what happens is the errors that you get are different in both the cases. Okay, what are the two cases we're talking about? One is you are trying to hit the endpoint that does not exist. Okay,
Hmm.
that is first case. You will always get a 404.
Hmm.
Okay, but now the second thing is you're trying to hit a variable that does not take an argument with with a dynamic endpoint.
Hmm.
What is going to happen here? First thing, if you don't want to see what exactly is the error, you will get a 404. At the end of the day, they are all trying to find or fetch an endpoint, right? If you don't get the endpoint, it is going to give you 404.
404.
But internally, what if you go with the debug and see what is internally happening, you can see that it will kind of give you an error trying to take one positional argument provided 0, or other way around, does not take any positional argument, 1 is provided.
Okay. So, okay. Argument error.
Hmm.
Okay.
All right. So I wouldn't say that they're completely mapped. What they internally try to do is, okay, I have a endpoint /user/1. Okay, can I get any pattern, something like this? Can I get? Yes. If I can get, I will be mapping to that endpoint. Sorry, that method. If I do not get, I should throw 404.
Okay.
All
So,
right. So that's how it works.
hmm. Okay.
Okay, but when it comes to RESTful, when it comes to Flask RESTful, what it does is there is a pattern matching, and that will be true for every other front end frameworks also. You'll see later on when you go for Vue, and later on again in future you go for React, there is always a pattern matching. Okay,
Hmm.
the way you are defining the endpoints, and we have discussed about, right, defining the endpoints and using the endpoints. If you have
Yes.
defined that, okay, I want a dynamic variable to be provided along with it, if you provide it while using it, you will everything will work fine. If you do not provide, there will be a 404.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, in RESTful, what happens? Every endpoint, look for the pattern. It will be mapped to all the methods that follow the or match the pattern. If the patterns doesn't match, they don't map at all. Okay, they don't get matched to with each other at all. Okay, so you can try that with RESTful. Just create a resource API. All right,
Hmm.
have 4 routes: get, put, post, and delete, right? And then in get and delete, you take one variable. In post and put, you take 0 variables. Okay, and then create 4 endpoints. You will see that with get, you are able to delete. With delete, you are able to get. You can see that.
Huh.
See, because when you are using RESTful, what is important is you explicitly provide the method.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? your endpoint will not decide, okay, what is the method. Your endpoint will simply map. What will particularly do the trick is the method. So right matching with right method will give you right answer.
Oh,
Right. So it is not the endpoint that you always match. You also match the method there. So a combination of endpoint, okay, the pattern of endpoint plus the HTTP verb will accurately match to the operation that you're trying to do.
hmm, okay. What is the difference between put and patch?
Put and patch. See, I mean, you can use them interchangeably in most cases. But let's say what happens is there are two different operations. Let's say if I want to replace some information, okay, replace some information entirely, you will generally use put. Okay, that is also an update.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, and patch is when you want to additionally add an information to it.
Additionally, add
That is
information.
also an update.
Like if I want to change a row of a student database, and it is put, and I want to change the first name of the student, then it is patch. Like that.
No, no, no. Okay, look at the, see, that's what I'm saying. The difference between these two cannot be, explicitly done. For example, but I can try to explain you with the help of example. For example, when you create a new profile in any application, okay, what are the most important things that you provide? You provide your username, maybe email, and then password. Okay, rest everything you do not provide. Okay, and your data is saved. Okay, later on, let's say if you want to change your password, you can always change your password. This is a update operation, right? You are changing the existing information. Okay, do that with put.
Okay.
Okay, but let's say when you get into the application, it always says, right, update your profile.
Hmm.
So what will happen there? You will go to the profile and you will see that there are a lot of fields that were by default added to none. Now you are just adding new information to it.
Okay. Adding
Right,
new
so
information.
you're updating your information, bringing more relevance to the information by not disturbing the original entities but adding new entities there, yeah, which
Okay.
were
Got
by default given as none. So this is
it.
where you use patch.
Patch. Okay.
Okay, can you do this with put also? Definitely yes. Right, therefore I'm saying there is no distinct behavior of these two, but the
Understood.
operations with the example that I've told you will kind of help you to see, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that is what we have been discussing a few minutes back, right, with yes we doubt also. Conventionally what you should do with the HTTP verbs, and logically what you can do with HTTP verbs are two different things. If you try to think everything logically, everything will be disturbed, no concept can be formed.
Yeah, that is fine. I was just asking about the convention because, like, there are few questions in which they just list the method and their work and do match the following. Like,
Hmm.
this type of question are there. So,
Right, but I don't think there will be any confusion with put and patch, right? There won't be any option that has both.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
so in again, our questions that we give here do not see in general web development. They are also divided with the courses, right? So MAD one will never ask you the difference between patch and put,
Hmm.
right? But let's say when you go get into actual creation of application where the front end and back end are two different entities, then it becomes very important to explicitly define what this endpoint does. All right, and that is the choice of developer what they want to use, right? So I can always update my entire information using put, I can do that, but it is always good to have two different endpoints, one that updates most relevant fields and other that updates optional fields, right?
Hmm.
So adding an optional field will only add extra information to the profile, right? So you can do that with the help of patch method. You should do that with the help of patch method. All right, but when you are trying to update the entire object, then you will do it with put method. Okay, and at the end of every conversation ask yourself, can I do this interchangeably? The answer to that question will always be yes.
Yes,
Right, Himanshu, are you getting?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Uh,
Okay,
okay.
now when it comes to question, you will never experience having asked put as well as patch in same question, right? Okay, so that's how we generally create questions.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you. Very nice session. Lot of doubts. I think half hour is just my doubts.
Yeah, that's okay. But that is, see, I mean, your doubts kind of are the doubts which every other student may have come across, right? Or will come across when they proceed further, right? So this is something that we should discuss in every meeting. So with that, I think we were okay. I think most of you have gone through the mock and the discussion we have done in this session. Please go through PYQs, try to understand more concepts that were not covered in mock, but they will be related, right? So try to solve PYQs to get an understanding of what kind of questions are asked and to what depth do we go when it comes to asking questions. Okay. With that said, please keep in mind that only doing PYQs will not ensure that you will be able to do the complete paper, right? Focus on the live sessions, open sessions, screencast, try to do it on your own, and then you will be in a better position to solve. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right then. So with that, if there are no more queries, we'll close the session. And best of luck for your quiz tomorrow. Hope this helps. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay then. Okay then. All right. I'll stop sharing and we'll close the session. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll see you in the next session.